Welcome to the Man Up God's Way podcast, a show that dives into the real, raw, and relevant issues for men and their faith, life, and community. Now, your host, Jody Burkeen.
To our sixth episode here and share with you. And so my name is, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. You?
I can't complain, man.
It's Monday, so I'm happy.
So you were off last week. And
I
you
was.
missed our podcast. What'd you do?
I listened to you guys take a little, some shots.
Yeah, we did.
We'll square that up later. We're going to class the show up here first and interview an outstanding citizen of the community, and then we'll get to all the jokes that you guys made last week. But yeah, we had fun. It was a bizcation. I had some meetings in New Orleans. I took the opportunity to take my wife. Neither one of us had ever been. And we had a great time. It was good.
That's awesome. Awesome. And as always, in the background, we got Fregosa and Rusty. How you guys?
Hey, what's up?
Good.
Doing good.
Good. Glad to have you guys here. Those are our production guys. And for all those watching today, just want to say thank you. Be sure to share this podcast with all your friends and everybody out there. We're trending right now pretty heavily. We're in the top 15 podcast, Christian men's podcast, and things seem to be kind of moving and grooving for us. We keep bouncing up and down, and I think God's doing a crazy thing here, which is pretty cool. It doesn't hurt that we have a pretty big social media following as well. Some of our merch here that we've got. This is how we pay for the podcast, if you will. Got some coffee, got some mugs, got books, got a flag on the back. I didn't tell about the flag last week. We got the new flag, the Man Up flag in the back last week, and so excited about that. You can go to manupmerch.com to pick those up. So anyway, without any further ado, really excited tonight. God has just been really moving behind the scenes with Man Up God's Way and some partnerships that we're really trying to work on. And out of the blue, we started having a conversation with a couple of guys, and Zach Clinton is one of them. He was introduced to me by his buddy Ben, and I actually met him through the founder of Faith Life. And so this is like this blanket that's being weaved together, and really getting some of us together. And so really excited tonight. Zach Clinton, go ahead and introduce yourself, man.
Yeah, what's up, everybody? First off, Jody and Ben, thank you guys so much for the opportunity. Man, just very thankful to come alongside you guys and partner with you and join you on your show.
Glad you're here, man. Glad you're here.
Real quick, it sounds to me like you've got a lot of smart, wise Bens in your life.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah,
something I just picked up
That's
on.
Right.
Sorry.
Zach's got a smart Ben. I got a smart Ben. Yeah, I get it.
That's it. Ben that you are referencing is actually my brother-in-law. So he's been around a while, and he's a wise one. I'll give it to him.
There you go. That's good. That's good. So you're not too unfamiliar with podcasts. Tell me a little bit about your podcast that you've got going on.
Yeah, so we have a podcast called the Built Different Podcast, and naturally what we're trying to do is we're just trying to invigorate some hope and encouragement and motivation in the lives of so many people that listen. I'm in the counseling realm, and so I really like to just try to spark change. And some, like I said, motivational psychology, peak performance psychology, different stuff like that. So what we try to do is interview some of the top kind of performers in their areas of expertise. So motivational speakers, professional athletes, pastors, leaders, whatever that looks like, and just kind of utilizing the power of someone's testimony to spark something within your life.
Amen. That's awesome. That's awesome. I always tell guys all the time they need to have a 2-minute, a 10-minute, and a 45-minute version of their testimony. You know, you got to be ready to share that at any time. So as we'll talk a little bit more about the podcast, tell us a little bit about the other ministry that you're involved in, actually a couple of ministries that you're involved in. Let's talk about Ignite Men. What does that look like?
So, man, Ignite Men's ministry is something that's so near and dear to my heart. My dad actually started the ministry about 12 to 13 years ago, kind of with me as the youngster in the forefront of his mind. He wanted to start an event where he could bring in these men that I was looking up to, right, like as heroes, but heroes in the faith. Right. So professional athletes, pastors, like I said, motivational speakers, kind of the same thing as the podcast, but in an event form where men could come as like a safe place to really just worship God, come collectively together and build relationship, not only with him, but with one another. And so it's just been amazing to see what God has done in and through the lives of so many. Just imagine, right? Picture, I'll never forget, one of my favorite memories as a kid was just listening to 8,000 to 10,000 guys in the Liberty University Vine Center with 4,000 of them coming forward, right, at an altar call, arm in arm, tears rolling down their face. And there's nothing like the sound of men worshiping God. There's just
that's
not.
Amazing. That is awesome.
Yeah.
I've had the experience of that a couple of times. It's pretty nice. It's really nice. That's awesome. What a legacy your dad's leaving you. I mean, like, starting that off with the mindset that how can I train my son and teach my son, to be a better man of the faith. And then here you are, 12, 14 years later, you're kind of following into his footsteps and carrying on the baton. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, it's been a blessing indeed. I look up to him. He's definitely my hero. I still tell him, he just had a birthday. He turned 62, and I tell him every birthday, I said, Dad, I just still want to be just like you. So yeah, he's definitely my role model. That's for sure.
I have a question. Awesome. Is it February birthday?
It was February the 3rd.
All right, good. Mine's February 22nd, so we're good here.
Let's go.
That's awesome. So the other ministry you're involved in is the AACC. Tell us a little bit about that.
So the American Association of Christian Counselors is a ministry that my dad has had the opportunity of being the president of now for, I would say, over 30 years. And really what we're trying to do is we're trying to educate and equip counselors within the mental health field, just trying to give them more evidence-based stuff in a Christian perspective, but also when it comes to the lay counselor, the pastoral counselor, trying to help them understand what that looks like to become a certified Christian counselor and different things like that through courses, through our Christian Care Connect, just different opportunities to really intertwine mental health and the church, because we think that there is definitely a bridge that needs to be formed, and we're just trying to help out with that process.
Yeah, I've got a lot of questions for you about the mental health stuff, and I've got some theories that I want to run by you here in a little bit. But let's just kind of I wanted you just to introduce those, just so we have them out there, and then we're going to talk about each one individually here quite a bit. But why don't you start off with your testimony? Tell us a little bit about yourself, how you came to know Christ, and the struggles, the ins, the outs, to how you got to where you are today.
Man, I love that question. First off, God is so good. Amen. That's just the in and out of my entire story. I was born and raised in a Christian home, kind of like you're saying with my dad, and my mom were actually both heavily involved in ministry. So my dad was leading the AACC, Ignite, but my mom heads up an Extraordinary Women's Conference. So it's the sister of Ignite.
Oh, wow.
Pretty
That's
much
cool.
Same exact thing. Yeah. So it's been a blessing. I went to a Christian school my entire life, right? So I was raised in the faith. But I kind of hid my life in the shadows of my parents, you could say, for a very long time throughout my entire high school career. I spoke Christianese, right? I could go and recite all the Bible verses, attend every Bible class, get good grades. Right. I was a good kid, right? And in earthly standards, I looked like a good kid. I wasn't making too bad of decisions, anything like that, but my faith was not my own. And so that was something that I hadn't made it personal, and I didn't really understand that and what that even meant until I got to college. And really what happened was I played 3 sports all throughout high school, had the opportunity of going to Liberty University to play college baseball. For 4 years, I was a pitcher there. And during my sophomore year, everything was going great. I was having the opportunity where I thought I was going to have a key role in the team. And then all of a sudden I broke my leg pitching, right? That doesn't happen. Okay. That doesn't happen. Yeah. Doesn't happen. Crazy. So as I broke my leg, I'm sitting there, and kind of the one thing that I loved, right, baseball, was completely stripped from me. And so my dad looked me in the face, and he kind of gave me he said something that I related to every aspect of my life, not just physical and baseball. But he said, son, you can either start working out or you can just keep hanging out. And he said, a lot of the kids that get in a lot of trouble, man, and remain complacent, right, they're the ones that just hang out. And so that's where I felt like my faith was. I knew who God was, right? I knew what he did for me. I was preached it, shoved down my throat my entire life. But I hadn't made that connection yet from the mind to the heart that, okay, Jesus actually died for me personally. And so in that moment, I really feel like I came to grips with myself. I released my clenched fist of trying to control very performance-based life, trying to live for the applause of others through sport. But I finally released it, surrendered it to God. But then, fast forward, I'm so thankful that experience happened, because my senior year of college came. I was actually engaged to be married, and things didn't work out to where months leading up to the wedding day, it just got completely X'd out, ghosted, gone. And so that, for me, my biggest fear, like most men, like almost everyone, right? The fear of abandonment, fear of unacceptance. And so my biggest fear came to fruition, and I was left with another crossroads of, okay, what am I going to do about it? And to be honest with you, I was broken. I was. And it took a lot of grieving process, right? A lot of people helped me along that process. I sought counseling, and I'm so thankful for the people that spoke such life into my life. But there was a moment in my life that changed forever about 3.5 years ago when I went out into a special place. I go out to the woods, right? That's where I typically go just to seek God, find him through nature, into a very peaceful place. And as I'm out there, it was a super hot day. I'll never forget it. Probably 95 degrees, no wind whatsoever. And all of a sudden, I'm just crying out to God, right? I'm crying out to him on my knees, saying, God, what is it that you want me to learn through this, right? Even harsher questions. Why me? And all of a sudden, I had all these questions, but the wind started going, and I can't even make this up, but the leaves started kind of swirling around. They formed this almost like pillar right in front of my face. And in that moment, I felt God kind of breathe into my life. Zach, in the absence of clarity, there is an invitation to intimacy with me. So, Zach, you don't need all those answers, right? All the answers you're looking for, I am the answer. And in that moment, I just kind of pressed into my relationship with God like never before. And God has done some miraculous things, and I've seen him do miraculous things. And when you experience God, it takes that knowledge to belief. It really does. And you now believe, and I can proclaim it, right? Christianity, my faith, is not just what I do, it's who I am. And now, full circle, 3.5 years later, 5 months ago, I literally was able to marry the girl of my dreams.
Oh,
and
wow.
God was completely brought things just back full circle. And that's kind of my message and my testimony.
That's
is that
awesome.
You have to remember, as you're going through the processes of life, that we still serve a God who will fulfill every promise along the way. So
Amen.
that's
awesome.
a little about me.
That's good.
It's amazing how when that happens in our lives and our faith comes to life, how that question goes from why is this happening to me to why is this happening for me?
Right.
Because of our trust in God. Yeah. If we just have that faith and we trust that everything that he's doing for a reason, he's doing for our good, that question becomes, why is this happening for me?
Right. That's good.
That's right.
Yeah, I keep telling my kids, because I'm also a pastor, and I've got kids, that are having to, all they've known is Christianity and church and, conferences and, everything. And I always told them, both of my older kids, I've got a 21 and a 19-year-old and then twin 11-year-olds. And I've always told the older ones, there's going to be a day where you're going to have to make the decision for your Jesus, not daddy's Jesus. You're going to have to figure out who Jesus is to you. And it sounds like you went kind of like in the same thing, where it was like you're going through the motions. I mean, you know what it means to be a good, moral, Christian looking person, but that relationship wasn't there, and you had to figure that out on your own, out in the wilderness, which is a great spot to be able to find Jesus a lot of times. That's good. That's awesome.
Amen.
So
Yes,
you just got married how long ago? 5.5 months ago?
Yes. So 5 months ago,
Okay.
got married. It was such an amazing experience. I'll never forget that day. It was so special, but probably my favorite moment of that day was leading up to it, just those moments with my wife, and just kind of writing our own vows, right? So that was something that meant the world to me. And to hear what my wife had to say, to really pour out my heart to her in a way that I had never done before, and the vulnerability that comes with that and authenticity, that was something that I will always, always cherish. Yeah, super special.
Awesome. That's awesome. Well, I've been married 32 years.
Nice.
And so I can tell you that you need to remember that day. It's like I tell people all the time, remember your salvation day. That's the pinnacle. Like that's the greatest day of your life. And then here comes life in general. And you and your wife will always have to go back to that day. because that will be the purest moment, the greatest moment of your marriage. And you'll have to remember those vows. You'll have to remember why you decided to do this marriage and how to stick it out and how to fight it out. And that will be the pinnacle of your marriage. And, things will change and you'll have different pinnacles, but that will always be the mountaintop, that first day. So I want to encourage you that. No, I meant I've got an amazing marriage. I'm just saying that.
That's right.
It's just like your testimony, though. When you finally give your life to the Lord, that's the greatest day of your life. Like it's that you feel 100%. So sweet, and that's where you have to go back to, because what the enemy wants to do is tell you that wasn't real, or you weren't really saved, or you weren't. No, I was. I remember that day, May 22nd, 2003. That was for me.
Well, so. That's a great point, because it's all through the New Testament in the Pauline epistles. Paul remembers that day like it was yesterday, and he talks about it over and over. And what we can fall into a trap of as Christians is we get away from that day, and we get lazy, and we get complacent, and that day doesn't mean what it should to us. So it's a great point. It's very, very important.
It is.
There's only 2 times I've ever felt completely in the will of God to where I knew it, and one of those days was the day I married Stacy 5 years ago, and I try to remember that day, because every day is not always great, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's good. That's awesome.
That's right.
So you're married, and you just recently married, and I see that you said you went to Liberty. We've got one of our young men who actually plays for Liberty football.
Nice.
From our church. I've watched him grow up. I mean, literally, he was this little bitty kid. Now he's 6'6", 320 pounds. Brendan Schlittler, number 55. He plays offensive line for Liberty, and
that's awesome.
We watched him grow up. Man, he won't even fit through the door now. He's just massive. I keep telling him when he goes pro, I'm gonna tell I got a story. I'm not gonna tell it now, but I'm gonna tell it later when he goes pro. It'll embarrass him quite a bit. So you finished up school after baseball, and you finished up at Liberty, and then now you're headed in for your doctorate. You said a while ago. Is that correct?
Yeah, so I finished up my undergraduate at Liberty, played baseball there for 4 years, then went into my master's program in the clinical mental health counseling program through Liberty for 3 years. And then all through that time, and now even into this season of life, like you said, going into the PhD in counselor education and supervision, just being able to be the team chaplain of the Liberty University baseball team. So still being able to be on campus, man, has been such a blessing. I love sports competition, so not having to be too far away. I still get to be in the dugout and still get to feel that energy. Oh, I love it. I thrive in it.
That's awesome. That's
awesome.
Good. That's a way to keep living the dream.
That's
and
right.
And now you're being able to be a mentor to these young kids, because you've been there, you know what they're going through, and I can't imagine some of the conversations that you have there. That's awesome. That's good discipleship.
Yeah, definitely some good ones. That's for sure.
I just it's quite a few. I'm 52, so it's been quite a few years since I was 19. But I do remember, just I don't know, just dumb. Like you just think you knew everything, the whole world, and and just dumb as a box of rocks.
He used a word. He used a word earlier when he was talking about doing the vows, vulnerability. Mm-hmm. Men, that is an evil word to men. When me and Stacy, when the first couple of years we got married, we struggled. We started going to marriage counseling, and it opened my eyes up to counseling, and I love it.
Right.
We don't always go. We go when we feel we need to, or we want to get something worked out. But I love it, and as I've learned to become more vulnerable. There's just so much more that opens up in my life because I'm willing to share my feelings more. Men need to do that more, and I'm sure you're talking to men about vulnerability and opening up and sharing their feelings and all that stuff when you're counseling men, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, most definitely, Ben. I think that is something that, like you're saying, that men really miss in particular, because we live in a culture and society today that preaches independence, right? Go out and do it on your own, right? And we preach like what is strength in our culture? It's all about how much you can lift. It's all about this different stuff, how much you can hide, how much you can take and keep going, right? Yeah. But like you said, vulnerability and authenticity, That is strength. When you can be
Right.
your real self and still feel loved and accepted, man, that is the most powerful and freeing place you could possibly ever be.
That's great. Yeah, that's where most men don't get to, unfortunately. You know,
Yeah.
I've discipled. I can't even count. You know, just over the last 15 years, and that discipled so many men, and it's trying to get to that place of just being open and honest. You know, it's so easy. Most of the time, you can tell when a guy's lying to you, but they really don't realize that they're lying to themselves. That's the problem. If they could just get to that place where they do that and just be open and honest, man, it just breaks down a whole lot of barriers, and it allows you to set up defenses. You know, if you don't figure out why you're doing what you're doing or feeling like you're feeling or acting like you're acting, you really can't fix it until you get to that broken place. And that's not an easy thing to do.
If you're following Christ, everything's not all right.
No.
In the big scheme of things, everything's okay.
Right.
But you're walking through a war, and you're in a world that's at war, and everything's not okay. And you remember when you used to disciple me when I first came to church, you'd ask me, "Hey, how you doing?" I'd be like, "Everything's fine." Meanwhile, my marriage was falling apart, and it wasn't until I was vulnerable with that. And every time you'd call, you'd say, "How you doing?" I'd be like, "Man, we're at it again." And this, that, and the other. And that's when it started to get fixed.
Change, yep.
Yeah.
That's good. That's really good.
That's right. And that's because, surrender is like our point of actually beginning the battle, right? Or beginning the war. When we release it, when we say, I've come to a place of brokenness in my heart, and I am in desperate and dire need of a savior or of help, right? Someone who's reaching down to grab my hand. That then begins the war, because when we're holding it all in, we're actually just completely giving up on life, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And that's
I
where
agree.
surrender, like you're saying, Ben, man, that's so powerful.
Zach, God got me to a place where early in my marriage, second or third year, we separated for a little bit. And I was ready. I had called a lawyer, and it was all my fault. So I admit that. It was all my fault. I had called a lawyer. I couldn't deal with it anymore. And I started bawling in my recliner, and I cried out to God. I said, "Lord, I know you don't want me to do this, but unless you bear this burden for me, I can't bear it anymore." And everything changed within 24 hours. It was amazing what changed.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's good.
That is amazing.
I'm kind of, I know I'm in here in the back and you can't see me as well, but that's one of the things, being able to go to counseling, when my wife and I were going through a rough patch, Pastor Jody kind of talked me off of a ledge, so to speak. And, going to counseling just honestly for myself was one of the biggest things, to be able to actually open up and share, what you're going through and like the struggles that you're dealing with. And then, the counselor I had gave me practical, applications and ways to go in and do things, that really helped. And then eventually, it got around to the point where my wife started coming, as well. And we started going together, and, that's definitely restored a lot. Not saying there's still work to do, obviously, but, because it's still an ongoing process, and it's going to be an ongoing process, but it's been really good.
Zach, I got work for you here. These guys need some help.
Let's go.
Let's start counseling.
Notice how I'm just doing fine.
Yeah,
You're single.
There's the guy. Yeah, there's the guy that we got to worry
single,
about.
you got no
yeah.
issues.
That's it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's awesome. Well, let's hop into the counseling. So, excuse me. What made you, other than following in your dad's footsteps, like what made you feel that was the direction, maybe the life choice that you were going to make after college and all of that? What was the catalyst there?
Yeah, so I think, for me, like you said, a lot of it had to do with me actually watching my dad and kind of seeing what he was able to help people produce in their own life. And as a people helper in general, just him being able to walk alongside of people, because that's all counseling is, right? It's not we don't have the answers. We don't give advice. It's really just walking alongside of people in this journey that we call life.
Right.
We're fellow travelers at the end of the day, right? We're no different than a client. We're no different than the person sitting across from us. We've just been educated in this field of choice. And so that's kind of where my love came from. It was through sports too. and just connecting with my teammates, seeing kind of the hurts and the attachment wounds and the different things that they were experiencing, whether it was anxiety, whether it was depressive states, depending on relationships, all sorts of different things that I saw. I just saw this need of my friends and so many others that just needed help. Right. And I just wanted to be someone that could maybe just be an ambassador to provide help that only comes from God, right? And I think that's what people need to understand too, is that Jesus, so many people, I'll say it this way, so many people when they're going through painful experiences, they want to put on like a Band-Aid, right? They'll go to anything to numb or anesthetize their pain. Time is not the healer of all things. Jesus is. Yeah. And so people need to hear that. And that's why I love Christian counseling, is because we can then actually point and direct people in an ethical way, but point and direct them toward the ultimate source of true healing and true hope, because hope is a person. And so, yeah, that's kind of what got me into it. And that's where my love for counseling and just the mental health field in general kind of comes into play.
That's awesome.
Zach, we forgot to tell you before the show, you can't use words like anesthetize on this podcast. we don't have
Ben's
PhDs.
over there on his phone.
I'm over there trying to Google
anesthetize.
What did he say? Did he say exercise? We don't like that word on this podcast either.
My dad's an anesthesiologist, so I got it.
That's great. That's great. So, like, what is your field or expertise, if you will, when it comes to counseling? Is there a certain genre, I don't know if that's the right term to use, but that you fall into, or field that you fall into?
So I'll give you a couple theories that I really enjoy. Are cognitive behavioral therapy, which really says that our thoughts influence our emotions, which then influences our behavior. So I love just diving into the mental things, kind of the negative cognitions, different things like that. But then attachment. My dad is big on attachment. That's what I've learned under him with a lot of it. And I feel like so many things are influenced by the attachment wounds that people experience early on in life. And typically when we're sitting in with a client or in a session, right, just being able to dive into, okay, let's dive into some of your past, if that's all right with you. And things will come up from the past that just resurface, and kind of trauma, different things like that. But what I love personally is sports psychology. Kind of what I mentioned earlier, motivational or peak psychology, helping people perform at their best and optimal level. And a lot of research that I'm doing right now is built kind of around shame and the trauma of failure, because research has shown that the most common trauma in life is that of failure. So then experiencing, when you do experience failure or pain can ultimately become your prison. You can get stuck, or it can become your passport, which propels you, and it can ultimately stunt potential, or it can actually reach potential. So that's kind of where I love in sports psychology and different things like that, just helping guys perform well, rooted, anchored in Christ, finding their identity in something more than a game.
Oh, that's good. I wish you'd been around when my high school football coach was sticking his foot up my butt. Holy cow. He'd nothing but negative, like, you're a dirtbag, you scumbag, you loser. You're like,
we need to move a couch in here.
I know.
Zach's bringing it, man.
What is wrong with you?
That's hilarious. The thing about that, though, is that some people, Jody, people might be motivated by that.
I typically am. Yeah. You ask my guys, if any of my
That'll
guys,
push you.
If any of my guys, text me and say, hey, I'm not coming to church, they get a picture of a Midol box. Like, I literally, I'm sick. I was like, I've been a pastor for 17 years and never missed a Sunday. Like, never been sick on a Sunday. Never, just like, so I'm kind of like, I take after
That's a flex.
Yeah, that is a flex.
Yeah, he's come in plenty of Sundays and not performed well, but he hasn't missed. Proverbs 4:23, above all else, guard your heart, for out of it come the issues of life. That's exactly what you were just talking about there. God, even though we're saved, and even though in that moment we're a new creature, there's still work that God has to do on our hearts. Because we've grown up with imperfect parents, with the devil that's also waging a war against us, with the failures of life, with our parents not pouring the wisdom into us that they didn't have to give us in the first place. And all those things, we have to be, our hearts still have to be restored, back to what I call the garden. when it all kind of went wrong, and our hearts were opened up to all this stuff that was never supposed to be opened up to. So I like what you said there about shame and the scars of the heart and the things that happen to us when we're young.
Yep, I can imagine. So
That's good.
we were talking earlier, and I wrote this down. One of my fears, and I think it's coming to fruition, is over the last few years, especially the last couple of years, just because of the COVID, the shutdown, the fear, the hopelessness, all the things that are going on right now. We're starting to see, studies and reports that are coming out, with suicide rates going up, addictions going up, divorces going up, extramarital affairs going up, like these major life issues that are happening because of, the shutdown, because of COVID, because of the fear, because of all of this stuff. Now, my question to you is are you seeing this, number one? And my theory is, and you can either deny or confirm it, that I think it's going to get worse. And, I would say in the next year and a half to 2 years, I think we haven't seen the true effect of the pandemic. That's what's going on. Are you seeing some of these things too? Especially you're involved in the school system or the university system and the counseling system. Are you seeing these things as well?
Oh my goodness, most definitely. When you think about, like you said, the pandemic in general, the lockdowns, from everything that happened in the past 2 years, just the craziness and the chaos, a lot of fear, anxiety, like you said, depression, even suicidality that are now all sneaking up and rising. Like you said, the prevalence rates are through the roof. Right. And my dad always says, we were in a mental health crisis before COVID, and now we're in a mental health disaster.
Yeah.
So yes, for sure seeing everything continuing to go up. And I think the number one thing that I see, I just spoke at a high school not too long ago. I gave a message about authenticity. I asked people to leave something, to write something authentically that they want to lay at the foot of the cross, to put it in a bucket on the way out of the auditorium, right? 1,000 kids. We got over 500 responses. And out of the 500 responses, the number one thing, right, was loneliness and self-esteem issues, right? Especially, and this is the next generation, right? These are kids. These are high school, like they're 15 to 18-year-old kids. Right. And that's what you're seeing. And I think it really comes down to, you don't have to go far in the Bible to understand what's not good. God, as he was going through creation, he said, it is good. It is good. After each day, it is good, right? But the one thing that he said was not good was for man to be alone.
Yes, exactly.
That's right. And so we were made for relationship. We were made to love and be loved. And what I feel like COVID's really doing is, my generation is the most connected through the phone. I don't have my phone on me, but also the most disconnected, right? Yeah. So when we naturally gravitate toward complacency, I'm just going to sit at home and I'm going to be disconnected from people. We're killing ourselves because we were made for that interaction in that relationship. So yes, to prove your point, I would definitely say it's not only going up, but I'm worried that it's going to continue to go up as well.
Right. Yeah, we're starting to see that here, even within the church world, you can just see the depression. Matter of fact, in our community this past weekend, as a matter of fact, just a couple of days ago, a little 12-year-old kid committed suicide, and just blamed it on or I shouldn't say blamed it on anything. The assumption is that he was bullied, and he spent the last 2 years at home, and all of a sudden they go back to school, and it's just been so hard on these kids. And I'm watching my own kids, struggle with the same things. And, the world is hopeless right now. And, we have to do a better job. And I know that's what Ignite Men, we'll talk about that here in just a minute. And I know that's what Man Up God's Way is to get the message of the gospel out to more and more people, so they understand that there is hope. No matter what's going on in this life, like if you have Jesus Christ and you're a follower, the worst thing that can happen to you is die. Yeah, you have heaven.
So, just to insert here, we're talking about how hopeless the situation sounds, but from the outside looking in, a group of high schoolers who are emotionally aware enough to say that's the issue. Like, hey, I'm lonely. I don't know if I was that conscious in high school to where I could say this is the root of the problem.
Yeah.
You know, I probably would have put like, you know, I don't feel cool sometimes. Okay,
I
maybe
don't
that's
honestly.
insecurity,
I don't
but-
remember talking about that kind of
Yeah,
stuff in
like,
high
that's
school. Like that
huge.
was not.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I grew up in Kentucky, and we literally had, you know, guys with trucks and shotguns in the back window, and you know, you never had. You know, they were going to school like literally with a gun rack on the back of it, and like we never thought of killing anybody or, you know, taking our own lives or like that wasn't. And I do believe it's social media. Like, you know, now you're, you know, when I was growing up, if somebody had a party, for an example, or, you know, 4 or 5 guys or whatever got together and they were going to have a sleepover and you weren't invited, you didn't know about that until Monday morning if they talked about it. You know,
years sometimes.
maybe even you know, but if you're going to try to get a hold of them back in my day, you would pick up the phone and you get a busy signal. You guys probably don't even know what a busy signal is, but you would literally just keep dialing back and forth, that, you know, psycho dialing kind of deal. But
I quite literally had a buddy throw a party at his house. I found out in college, like we're sophomores in college. I was like, bro, we were boys. What happened?
Yeah.
I didn't get invited to that?
Yeah,
That's messed
exactly.
up. We had some issues. That was years later.
But now, like, my kids can actually look at Snapchat or, you know, some kind of Instagram or whatever, and they can actually tag them wherever they are. Like, they know that there's a group of people to get together. So I think the social media, along with the social construct that we have right now, is just a recipe for disaster. And
most definitely, and that's for sure. And that's something that just falls right into what I like to say is we live in a comparison culture that's built on perceived perfection. So social media, that's all it does. And it just it just reiterates, right, that feeling of I'm not good enough, I'm unaccepted, that person's better off than me, right? Or they're better than me in general. And then that brings, right, the shame, the inferiority, all sorts of different things. And that when that compiles, you can see how kids get lost in their thoughts. You can see how kids get lonely. You can see how the accuser begins whispering those lies, right? And then it's just the battle right here. And man, this is a scary place to live. It can be the most beautiful, free, and creative space in the brain, in the mind, but it can also be the most dark and desperate place ever.
Yeah, exactly. I always call it stinking thinking. You start the stinking thinking, it's all over after that. Yeah. Well, that's awesome. So, are you currently like do you have an office and you're counseling people, or are you just doing the chaplain stuff, or you're literally meeting with people on a daily basis?
Yeah, so I'm meeting with clients on a weekly basis. I meet with a lot of athletes. I do mentorship, discipleship, stuff like that, but obviously different than a counseling going into practice. But yeah, so I see clients on a weekly basis as well in our counseling practice at Light Counseling here in Virginia as well. So that's been a blessing. It's a lot of fun. Like I was saying earlier, counseling is really, it's just journeying alongside of somebody and just to help them with that incongruence, whatever that may be in their life, just trying to come with them and trying to help them kind of connect their dots and figure out a way to find that true hope and freedom.
Right, exactly. That's awesome. Well, tell us about AACC. Like, I know that it's a membership for counselors.
Yes.
I think I read, and I think Ben actually told me, not my Ben, your Ben, that you had 20,000 members or something like that within the membership group, and then you have classes and certifications as well as school. So tell us a little bit about that as well.
Yeah, so AACC, like you said, it's a membership-based opportunity where we try to really just instill within counselors, whether it's counselor educators, whether it's the supervisors, whether it's students like myself who want to come in because they got the ACA, you have the APA, then AACC is kind of a Christian dimension of those things. So trying to offer the evidence-based practices that come around that Christian culture that I would say. And we have our Light University, which offers courses to kind of just educate, encourage, and equip, right? Because this is kind of our thing. We want to connect, like I said earlier, bridge that gap between mental health and the church. Most people, when they're going through a really difficult situation, where are they going?
They're going to
they're going to go to church.
Yeah, the church and the pastor. Yeah.
Yep.
Right. Exactly. They're going to church because it's a safe place, right? Oh, okay. I'm going to go there because I need some Jesus in me, and that's going to fix all my problems. And naturally, we believe that Jesus does fix but we just want to help people figure out how to get there. So what we're trying to do is train the people specifically within the church, within these different settings, to help them understand what that looks like for best referral, right? Or best practices, different things like that, to help you guys in the church understand, okay, this is what counseling is really all about. Let's not just push them toward, hey, you need to be a better Christian, right? Or here, read this verse. This will solve your anxiety,
Right.
You know, that type of stuff. But really trying to equip the church with understanding that and bridging that gap, because we think if that gap is bridged, ultimately, that's where a lot of healing and hope can be found too.
Right. Oh, that's good. Yeah, I tend to, you know, for my own personal counseling, when I'm meeting with people, it's usually 3 times. You know, if after 3 times I can't help them get on the right path or whatever. And this was some great advice I got from somebody a long time ago. Just, you know, after 3 days, you need to move them on to professional counseling or, you know, a psychiatric or something like that, you know, psychiatric doctor to make sure that they were good and okay, you know, because sometimes that stuff's above my pay grade. Holy cow. Or my time. You know, I can't imagine you guys.
Yeah.
The amount of time that you spend with a lot of people just talking about their issues and stuff. So that's awesome, man. And so, for an example, what's a certification? Like, what would somebody get a certification on, and what could they do with that certification through AACC?
Yes, we have different opportunities, like through Light University. We have it for life coaching. We have it for counseling. We have it for marriage and family therapy. We have it for substance use and abuse disorders, different stuff like that, to really just train people in those specific areas. We have, you know, master's degrees and different things like that, to where they are the certifications, and then partner with the IBCC. What that then does is kind of the International Board of Christian Care, that then can help people attain that, you know, full certification, I would say. AACC, what we offer is more so that clinical side, and then partnered with that, you can become a certified Christian counselor, certified care counselor, whatever you kind of going for, certified life coach, anything like that.
Okay, awesome. How do people get a hold of information for that? What's the website?
Yeah, so you can just go to aacc.net, and that'll take everybody right there to it. You'll find all the courses, you'll find all the memberships, you'll find our CCC. So if you are a counselor or in a practice, if you want to join our CCC network, somebody can Google you, look up Christian counselor in my area, and automatically you'll pop up. And yeah, so it's a really great membership. I'm telling you guys, I'm not just saying that because I work here and I love the company more than anything, but it really will, like I said, bring just an equipment, encouragement, and kind of education more to your life.
You said lightuniversity.com was the other one, correct? That's
and
where
lightuniversity.com.
That's where the courses are.
Yeah, that's actually on their website.
Yep.
If you'll do the
AACC.net.
AACC.net, yeah, we're throwing that on the feeds.
Awesome.
They're both on there.
Okay, good. That's good.
Perfect.
Yeah, I checked those out last night. Those are it's really interesting. And one of the things we're going to probably talk about later on, not necessarily on the podcast, but we're looking to do a certification through Man Up. So hopefully we can
awesome.
We can talk about something like that
Most definitely
as well. So that'll be interesting to talk about.
Yeah.
So let's jump back into your podcast. So.
Yeah.
Now, you're involved in the men's ministry, Ignite Men's Ministry, and we'll talk about that. Is this kind of an offshoot of that, or is this something that maybe God led you to do? How did you get started in that?
So, Ignite was always, it's our men's event, right? And so my thing was, people are going to come here. They're getting on a spiritual high, which is super easy to do. It's a 2-day weekend, super exciting. Hear all these great messages and testimonies. Yeah, let's go. Right? We're invigorated to go home and ignited to bring our faith back home. But what happens come a month later, 2 months later, right, when you're out of that spiritual high and you've hit another valley? And so what I kind of wanted to do during COVID, so it was 2020, was I said, hey, let's throw up an Ignite Men's Battle Cry podcast. And it was the same format. I was just interviewing men specifically on such topics of how, helping men overcome, helping them flourish in their everyday life, and kind of that John 10:10 theme of living a life in abundance. And so that's where it began. And then it kind of naturally gravitated into, hey, I want to make this more toward like the younger generation, kind of my type of generation of, I would say, like kind of athlete minded, different things like that. The sports psychology realm, I wanted to open it up to women. And so I wasn't just interviewing men, and that's kind of where Built Different formed. I'm working on a book right now with a guy named Max Davis called Built Different, just kind of helping people find perspective and power in the midst of their pain. And so it's just been really fun just to jump on, kind of like you're doing, just interview people on their testimonies, talking about specific topics and just hearing their feedback, and then just really just trying to instill hope and encouragement and that motivational piece to not only spark change, but then to sustain change in and through people's lives as well.
Oh, that's awesome. That's really good. I'll be praying for your book. That'll
Appreciate it so much.
help out quite a bit as well. I listened to a couple of episodes, and I've got it now saved, so I'm a subscriber.
Nice.
So I'll start listening
Thank
to it.
you.
I'll start listening to it,
And
even
I'll be
more.
listening to this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So make sure that you guys go and look at Build Better. Is that correct? Or Build Different. I'm sorry, Build Different.
Yep.
I almost pulled the Joe Biden on you. Sorry. Build Back Better. Sorry about that.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, Build Different. There we go. Make
That's
sure
it.
Rusty will post that as well. So, well, man, that is
Awesome.
That is awesome. So
Thank
how
you.
long? So you've been doing that since 2020, and is it a weekly podcast?
So I've been doing, actually Built Different just started last March. So I've
Okay.
been doing it for 11 months, coming up on a year now. It's a weekly podcast, releases every Tuesday. Our podcast actually releasing tomorrow is with NFL Hall of Famer Jim Kelly. And so really fun just introducing him, kind of just walking through some words that all begin with the letter P and really come through that pain, perspective, power, perseverance, persistence, possibility. Yeah, so it's a good one. It's just a lot of fun just hearing what he has to say.
That's great. That is great.
And he's been through it, man.
Yeah.
Jim
He's
Kelly.
been through it.
Oh,
That's right.
man.
Yeah, he's
Yes.
amazing
has
father,
endured.
all the kids, and yeah, exactly. That's pretty cool. That's pretty
Yeah.
cool. So what else is on the horizon for Built Different? Like outside the book, what do you foresee going forward from here?
Yeah, so one thing that me and some of my good buddies are really kind of collaboratively working toward is making this more so into a ministry that gives back into our local community. Some guys that I played college baseball with that went on to play professional baseball that are here in the local area. What we're trying to do is to have these kind of Built Different clinics, because I know that kids, man, they'll do anything, and parents will do anything to get their kid an edge on the athletic field, right?
Yes.
Like they'll pay for lessons, they'll pay unrealistic amounts of money for a lesson for these kids.
Right.
And so what we want to do once a week is provide opportunities for kids around the local area to come out, whether it's through baseball or football, whatever sport they want to just get better, get poured into by former professionals or collegiate level coaches for free. And then twice a month, really just mentor them and disciple them and trying to build them up in a holistic sense. So not just athletically, but really just giving back kind of a volunteer service. And it's just been a lot of fun trying to collaboratively doing that and launching that in the next 2 weeks. So it'll be a lot of fun.
That's awesome.
Zach, I had a question
Yeah.
for you.
Yeah.
And maybe this is just I don't want to give away too much with the podcast or whatnot and what you do, but
Yeah.
what key habits? Two questions really. What key habits do you find are necessary in your walk? And then the second question to caveat with that, obviously quiet time being one of them. How did you end up picking walkabouts and getting away and into the wilderness? So first, like any other key habits, and then two, focus in on the quiet time because I think it's so pivotal and important, something that I even do in my own walk. But yeah, just talk on that for a little bit if you can.
Yeah. So 2 key habits in my faith walk, like you said, first thing is most definitely quiet time. I'm actually in my PhD intensive right now. So I was in class today from 8 to 5. And so the one thing that we were talking about was self-care. And when I'm talking about spiritual self-care, man, I have to wake up every morning and really devote myself to diving into God's word, to find quiet time. I was listening to the great theologian Dallas Willard. He once wrote, "You must ruthlessly eliminate hurry from your life." And so that for me, and that for so many people, is so difficult because life just throws busyness after busyness, right? We always have something better to do, but ruthlessly eliminating hurry from life is something that has been able to really been a habit that I've tried to create, right? And it's not that we show up late to things because we're ruthlessly eliminating hurry. No, it's actually we show up earlier because we get things done sooner. And so that's something that I've been doing.
Yeah,
I just bought that book.
That's
Zach.
John Cormer's.
Zach, I just bought that book, The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. I was at one of John Eldridge's men's conferences, and I met this kid, I'm 50. So I met this young kid from Grand Canyon University. He played basketball overseas, and he sat down next to me, and he started talking to me, and we struck up a conversation over probably a day and a half because we kept sitting next to each other. And he told me about this book called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry, and said it was big in the college circuit. So I bought it. I haven't started reading it yet, but it's something I want to start reading very soon.
That's cool.
That sounds great. Yeah. So that's definitely the first piece, eliminating hurry, quiet time. But then the second thing I would say is really finding time to have fellowship with other like-minded believers, and as a man with brothers in Christ, right? So I can always go to my wife. I love my wife so much. She is so encouraging to me. But when I band with a band of brothers, it's just something different. And when we can be vulnerable, like we talked about earlier, and authentic and really open up about our struggles, these are something that we're going through, that has become a habit of mine that I do that every week. Every Thursday morning, me and some buddies and some baseball guys even, we meet at Chick-fil-A, 7:15 in the morning before work, before anything gets going, and we just dive into God's word. We're open, we're honest, and those are two habits that have really been just pivotal in my faith walk, and just honestly letting other people, what I call as people fuel, letting them fuel me and fill my cup, because God placed them in my life for a specific reason. So that is something that has been such a blessing as well.
Now, how did you end up picking, you said you go out into the woods all the time. This is something that I've been doing for a while. My brother got me doing. I call it going on a walkabout, where I'll just go out into the wilderness for, a week at a time and try to separate from social media, separate from distraction and all the above. And the cool story that you described of God just kind of, twirling some leaves right in front of you, seeing the hand of God quite literally move in front of you. How did you end up, who taught you how to get away, how to make that a practice and getting that wilderness time or that nature time?
Yeah, so my dad he's a hunter. He's a fisherman, right? Man, he always taught me what the wilderness was all about, always. But my dad is very good about getting away. So one thing that he's always done is, for instance, if he feels locked up, if he feels stuck, if he's anxious about something, whatever's going on in his life, hey, let's jump in the car and let's go for a ride, right? So he loves driving back down the old country roads here in Virginia. And that's something that I've always loved to do. And then John Gordon, actually, another guy who I have been just really learning under, and someone that I love. He talks a lot about the power of positivity. He talks a lot about taking walks of gratitude, right? Or thankful walks is kind of what he calls them. And that's been something that's been super good too, because in some of my hardest moments of life, there's a quote that I read by Nancy Lee DeMoss, and she said, I've learned that in any and every circumstance in my life, I can respond in one of two ways. I can whine or I can worship. And it's impossible to worship without giving thanks. And that, to me, man, that says it all right there. That's so just being able to find time in silence, solitude, giving thanks.
It's tough to worship while you're whining too.
Yeah, exactly.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
Is.
I like it.
That's good. That's really good. Well, awesome, man. Good question. That was a good question. So let's jump into the Ignite Men's Conference. Okay, give us a little history background on that, and then tell us what you got coming up.
Yeah, so the event's been going on for about, like I said earlier, 12 to 13 years. My dad started it with that whole entire idea of who can I bring in that my kid can look up to, that my kid can find as good, godly men who are actually standing bold in their faith. And we brought in so many guys throughout the years, from Drew Brees to Tim Tebow, Mariano Rivera, to military heroes like Marcus Luttrell, who's right over there, right? Marcos Geist, so many different people, Jerome Bettis, Big Ben, Jim Kelly, like I already mentioned, just amazing men who really want to stand firm on God's truth. And ultimately what we believe with Ignite, and kind of why Dad started it, and he wrote his like most recent book, Take It Back, is because there is a beat down on men, right? In our culture and society today. Culture and society is coming up with this thing called toxic masculinity. And all they're saying is, right, men are buffoons, men are mean, men are cold-hearted, men are abusers, right? They're porn addicts, they're horrible fathers, they're terrible husbands, all of these different things. And don't get me wrong, what we're just saying is we are not excusing toxic behavior.
Right.
But there's a difference between toxic behavior and toxic masculinity.
Right.
And that's kind of where we want to come into the picture and help instill a safe place for men, because we believe that men matter, just like you guys do. And we believe that dads matter, right? And trying to build up the next generation of men and leaders and protectors and providers. And don't get me wrong, we love everybody. We love women. But we're just saying that there's something different, and we want to help encourage the heart of men because of that beatdown, right? Church sometimes even can be a tough place for men to come to because they feel like, okay, they're an outcast. They feel like nobody accepts them. They feel judged. So they don't even want to come to church sometimes. So we wanted to create an event that men say, you know what? We can let our guard down. We can come with our friends. We have workshops on fishing and hunting and football and basketball and sports. But then we have workshops on what it looks like to be a better husband, what it looks like through the 12 steps to break out of addiction, right? What it looks like to grow a dynamic faith. We have these different things where guys may come with their fishing buddies just to hear from an expert in the field of fishing. But then they come and they sit in the main stage and they hear the testimonies of these men, and their lives are changed forever, right? So we've had story after story. It's been so amazing. And we can get into statistics when it comes to do dads matter. I mean, so many things from kids, literally. It says when a dad, hear these words, when a dad is fully engaged and present in the life of a child, okay? It says this, they are less anxious, they're less depressed, there's a less rate of suicidality. It says that their academic performance and cognitive development are increased. They're more empathetic. They have a greater and stronger male and female identity. They're less likely to give into peer pressure. I mean, it's just crazy statistics. So if we think that men don't matter, we're going completely against the facts, because toxic masculinity would mean that kids would be better off without a man or a male influence in their life. And that clearly is not what the research has to say.
The message that you shared there that men were hearing, it's a lot of that comes from the church too. So the you suck, you must do more and get better message is not working with men. Men want their hearts touched. Men want to be able to feel comfortable to be vulnerable like you're speaking. And that message that you said earlier, all the, you're suck, porn addict, this, that, and the other, that's a real dangerous message now, because that's not the way to motivate or change the hearts of men anymore.
That's right.
And I'm not saying,
that's right. And Jesus, though, man, Jesus was the model man, right? So I'm not just saying, too, that men have to be, weak and gentle and, kind and have this Mother Teresa complex that so many of us give to God ultimately, right? That's all he is, which he is those things. But God is also, he's a fierce warrior, right? Yeah. He came to fight. It says, Revelation 19:13, he is dressed in a robe dripped in blood, and his name is the Word of God, right? So God is a warrior ultimately fighting for our freedom. And we as men need to fight for our own freedom, but also the freedom of others. Right. And so that's the beauty of who God is, who Jesus is that he was the manly man, right? He was that guy. And he laid a perfect foundation of what that looks like. And that's also not just talking about toughness, but like when I think of my dad, when I think of my two grandfathers, right? This is something that I've been able to see in my life of what masculinity looks like to me. And not only were they strong, not only did they care, right? Not only did they come from that get after it mentality generation, right? Where they worked hard, but man, they're the kindest men I have ever met. They love well. They know what it means to love and be well. Right. They know what it means to provide safe, secure relationships and attachments for those around them. And I think of a book by John Ortberg. It's called I'd Like You More If You Were More Like Me. And he talks about the art of intimacy. Right. And he says that intimacy ultimately is this act and mastering the act of being present in someone's life. And I think men, when they can understand what that looks like, mastering that act of being present, that's what intimacy looks like, because that's what Jesus did. Yeah. Right? When you think of who he spent the most time with in his disciples, man, he walked with them, he hiked with them, he fished with them, he ate with them, he did everything with them, right? But he understood what that looked like to be fully present with them.
That's good.
Now, do you find, Jody, really you find that, I mean, you're a pastor. In your church, do you find men are struggling to have that intimacy? Because we do have a tendency to say, you know, hey, how we did it when I showed up today. Hey, how are you? Doing good. How are you? Doing good. Done. Right. Surface level. You know, we don't typically sit down and say, no. But I mean, how are you? Like, what's going on with you? So do you see men struggle with that? What's your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing men's ministry now for almost 15 years, and that's probably the biggest problem is the lack of honesty. You know, just saying, and a lot of times, unfortunately, most men will only come to church. They don't come to the men's groups or the breakfasts or, the Bible studies or anything like that, or the small groups, and it's harder to get engaged with them. The ones that will actually get engaged are easier to kind of find a common thread that you can start pulling on. And once you start pulling on that thread, you kind of reveal the whole issue of what's going on in their life. And I've always said men have five major problems: sex, wives, money, kids, and work. And yet we're too prideful to talk about those. If we would just, and that's why I always tell men, you've got to share a testimony. Like, if I'm sharing my testimony, I talk about my porn addiction and my alcoholism and my drinking, my drugging, my lust problems. And when I start telling those, of my testimony and how I battle them now, it usually opens up a door for somebody to say, I thought I was the only one going through this. And then all of a sudden it's kind of like, oh, okay, so now here's the door open. Now let's work it out. But majority of men are pretty closed-minded. Well, I wouldn't say that they're closed-minded. They're just not engaged.
Almost beaten into submission. Yeah. Not closed-minded, but I would say beaten into submission. Like, I think this is a John Eldredge paraphrase. The church has done a really good job of just making weak men, weak and submissive men, and we've turned into, we see Christ. Zach, like you were saying, we see Christ and we see this, we need to be weak. We need to be soft. We need to be Mother Teresa-esque. And meekness is great power restraint. And it's super encouraging to hear what you guys are doing
I always, like even I wrote in my book, a godly man is not one, a godly man is not one who can bend iron or chew through steel. Like, it's a man that will humble himself and cry out to a holy God and protect his family spiritually and, lead his church. That's a godly man. We've got plenty of bad examples of what a man looks like. Now the world needs to see what a good example of what a godly man looks like, because a godly man is going to change his surroundings. He's gonna be that flame that the moth is drawn to. And you can see that a lot of times for guys who are living a life like that. People want to be near them. People want to be, attached to them and glean everything that they possibly can off of them.
Well, and it's one of those things. I worked, in a church setting actually as a staff member for almost 6.5, 7 years, full time. And that was one of the most freeing things I started doing, because, you're walking down the hall and people ask you, how you doing? I'm fine. I'm good. It's good. I started about, it was probably about a year or so before I left. I kind of got to a point that I'm like, you know what? I'm going to be honest. And it actually opened up conversations with people. I actually sat at their desks. We had actually kind of interesting, deep kind of conversations, because all of a sudden you now are willing to, how you doing? Oh, not doing super great today, or this, and it didn't always roll over into family and what was going on. But
Right.
hey, my daughter's struggling in school, so we're having a little bit harder time with her. And then, some of the other staff members, oh, I've been dealing with some of that same
thing.
stuff too, and you kind of find these commonalities, and then you start looking at scripture and you're actually like, okay, this is what I'm learning here.
Right.
And they would teach, they would basically tell you what they were learning as well. And you just kind of help each other move along and move in, go through the process.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what guys got to do. We've
So
got to
good.
learn to communicate, learn to talk, and
We got to.
yeah, and that's
it.
That's where we have been focused on. Discipleship is really
Yeah.
key. There was a time, 2000, I think it was 2015. I spoke to over 5,000 men, and that year, I did a poll, and I asked. In the poll, I would speak to these guys and I would ask, who here is a Paul? And then I would explain to them what my definition of a Paul was. It was to have a Barnabas and an Ananias in your life pouring into you, and then it was having a Timothy and a Titus that you were pouring into. And no point in your life should you ever not have one or the other. There could be seasons where you're being poured into, but then you should never have a season where you're not pouring into somebody else as well. And so I asked that question, and out of 5,000 men, 189 guys raised their hand that actually said they either had a Paul or a Barnabas in their life or a Timothy in their life. And you can see why the church is going to hell in a handbasket, because we don't have that kind of discipleship going on in the church.
That's it.
And it's pretty sad. And
It is.
So when I think of something like the Ignite Men's Conference, it's a once a year conference, correct?
Yep. Yes, sir.
How are you? I look back in one of the big things before I wrote my first book that I studied Billy Graham and what he did in his crusades. And because if you look at the 60s and 70s, you had this great evangelistic movement. Like massive evangelistic movement. He's reaching millions and millions and millions of people. But yet when we get into the 80s and the 90s, the church is falling apart. Like why, what happened? Where was the disconnect? The gospel was spoken, but I think of it like the parable of the sower of the seed. You got the 4 types of soils. And here he is, spreading this seed, and it doesn't necessarily grab a hold of people, because then you get into the 80s and 90s, we had this great small group movement. It's really when cell groups started, having the small groups and cell groups and all of this. And again, we weren't evangelizing. We were learning and getting knowledge and puffed up, but we weren't actually having evangelism. And so my point or my question is how are you guys, like, not just having this great mountaintop experience, but how are you trying to engage these guys after the fact? Like, that's what I've always seen from our conferences is, man, we get them at the altar, we get confessions, we get salvations, we get all of this kind of stuff, and then they leave and go back to their home church, and it's like, okay, what happened to them? What's going on with them?
Right.
How do we keep them engaged? So
That's right.
what are you guys doing for that?
So one thing, this is a little sneak peek. So one thing we're actually releasing at our event this coming March 11th and 12th is we have developed a video-based devotional series that we're going to be emailing to stay in touch with all of these guys. And so
That's awesome.
We've collected interviews from some of the leading experts, whether it's in motivational, whether that's professional athletes, whether that's leading pastors, whatever that looks like, that have already sent in their video-based devos. We're writing out the entire kind of script to go off of, a weekly format for these guys that we can then email or text message them each week at the beginning of the week on Sunday or Monday, whichever day we kind of decide to do it. That kind of starts off their week with that video devotional and then gives them action steps to take throughout the week. And we're going to do it from March 11th, and we're going to have enough videos to then roll out throughout the rest of the year, kind of until they come back again to our next Ignite. That's kind of something that we've been doing and developing. It's something, it's really fun. It's super easy. And, as we live in a culture and society that is very phone-based driven through social media, a simple click of a button to watch a video, I'll do that in a heartbeat, right? I can watch it. I can listen to it on the way to work.
Right.
Simple as that. So that's kind of what we're doing. And yeah, so really looking forward to offering that coming up, like I said, at the event.
That's awesome. All right, so tell us about the event that's coming up. I've seen the lineup, and man, it's packed. Holy cow!
We got a lot of people in there.
Yeah.
It's packed. No, we are so excited. So we got from, opening night, we'll probably open it up with Inky Johnson, who is my favorite motivational speaker.
Yeah,
I mean, I have listened to that guy time and time again. I could probably quote most of his speeches. I love him so much. So he'll probably lead it off. Then we got another motivational speaker that'll be coming in. Rick Rigsby, who is, that dude's a Christian motivational speaker.
Yeah,
he's a preacher. He's stomping. Yeah. He brings the juice.
Yeah.
Man, well, then we got Jason Romano, who is actually the host of the Sports Spectrum podcast. He was an ESPN anchor for over 17 years, has an incredible testimony of just kind of father wounds and brokenness in his own life. Great testimony there. We got Clayton King, who's a pastor out here, such a powerful preacher, and I just thoroughly have enjoyed listening to him time and time again. And then we got the athletes, right? The three NFL quarterbacks. So we got Big Ben coming, who we cannot wait to hear what he has to share with us. He came about 5 years ago, and man, it was unbelievable to see what God was doing in and through his life, and how he just stirred Ben in this moment. A memory I'll never forget. So he was up there sharing his testimony, and he broke down in tears because it was like he had never really done something quite like that before in front of that many people. And as he's sitting there and he's crying because he recognizes, that his purpose is in something greater, and he's talking about his family and his kids, all of a sudden, as he's tearing up, 7,000 to 10,000 guys just chant, Ben.
Oh, that's awesome.
Ben. And man, the buildup was just insane. So we cannot wait to have him back. We got Carson Wentz coming, which is going to be absolutely amazing. That dude's on fire for the Lord. Can't wait to hear his testimony a little more. And then Kurt Warner. And with his movie, American Underdog, I don't know if you haven't seen it, you need to. I'm not kidding you. I watched it.
Yeah, we sponsored it.
It's incredible.
Yeah, we sponsored.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we sponsored it, and
awesome.
Had the opportunity to have private showings and stuff like that. So it's been cool.
We're in St. Louis.
It's a great movie.
Yeah, we're in St. Louis, so it was kind of a big deal here.
That's sweet.
Yeah,
most definitely. Yeah, so we got all those guys coming. They're speaking from the main stage, but then we have, like I said, breakout sessions where we'll have other people like Bobby Petrocelli to guys like Bill Betts coming in from Alaska who are experts in their field of fishing, and just different people from all certain walks of life. We got licensed clinical psychologists, coming in that are going to preach on what it looks like to overcome addiction. We got licensed marriage and family therapists coming in to preach about how to be a better husband, a better dad.
That's awesome.
Different things like that. And then we're coming out with our Ignite. We have an outdoor expo, which is just so much fun. It keeps guys engaged. It's outside. We're going to have a live concert that will be outdoor with Micah Tyler, which we cannot wait for. And he's bringing Austin French, who he's on tour with. So keep guys engaged. The fire pits, the axe throwing, the rock climbing, everything's going to be there. So make it really interactive for fathers and sons, and just a really fun experience. So if anybody listening is close by that can make it in person, get in your car and please join us, because it is something that you will never forget. It's a blast.
That's awesome. Well, just for tonight, I should say for the next couple of days, Man Up is going to be promoting the Ignite Men's Conference. And so we'll be throwing it out on our social media. We have 878,000 followers on Facebook. We have a private group that has 32,000 men in it alone. And so we'll put that in there as well. And then we have 32,000 on Instagram, and right around 20,000 emails that we're going to start launching for you guys coming up. And so just for those who are listening,
we appreciate you guys.
Hey, man.
First off,
thank
you.
It's our privilege. That's we need to band together as ministries more than what we do, and this is our way that we can band with you. And so the ticket prices, so you have two options. You have the live, which you can come to Lynchburg, Virginia. Is that correct?
Right.
And
yes, sir. Lynchburg,
right
Virginia,
to
Thomas Rowe Baptist Church.
Okay, right at the Liberty campus. And then, so if you're in the area or you feel like hopping on a plane, getting over there, if you'll go to the website at Ignite Men's, is it
IgniteMen.net?
Yeah, IgniteMens.net. You can find hotels and stuff like that for it. So there are tickets there that you can go for there. We have a deal for those who can't make it for the virtual conference. And so you can, as a church, you can buy, it's normally $119. And if you put in the Man Up code, just type in Man Up, you'll get an extra 20% off of it. That'll be $99 for a church. So for an example, if you have a small group or men's ministry that you want to get involved in this, it's a great opportunity to basically simulcast it, and you're going to have it for $99. If you're an individual, it's normally $29. 20% off will get you for $23, and that's for all the events. You won't have the breakout sessions, but you will have a couple that will be designated for the online system as well.
I do have a question about that. Will those breakout events be recorded and be available at a later date or to purchase? Have you guys decided that yet?
Yeah, so we really haven't decided all that yet. That's probably something that we could ask Ben, the brother-in-law piece. He probably knows a lot more about that than I do, but we can definitely let you guys know for sure.
Awesome. Well, so if you go to their website, you register for either the virtual event. Like I said, you can do the church for $99, or you can do the individual for $23. Just make sure you put in the Man Up code. And we'll be launching that throughout the week, and hopefully get you guys some hits on that.
Now,
so
we appreciate you guys.
What's the in-person cost? I didn't catch that.
The in-person cost, I think as of now, I know we have a special deadline going on. The price is not coming to my head, but we do have a special deadline that ends on Friday, which is February 25th.
Yeah, it says 60.
So
it says 67.
If you guys want it.
Yeah, I just pulled it up. It says 67 right now.
Okay. That's a steal. I mean, just
perfect. That's
really, I mean, I've been a big fan of Ike Johnson for a long time. I mean, that alone is worth the 67.
Oh, yeah.
To hear him talk, he's so inspiring.
That's it.
So, yeah, that's a steal, guys. If you're listening, like, man, I'm close enough, maybe I should. You definitely should.
Yep.
That is awesome. That is awesome. Well, why don't you... Zach, why don't you go ahead and tell us how to get a hold of you or your ministries or all of that, and then any final words that you have to say. We'd love to have you go ahead and share those, and then we'll let you. I know you're an hour ahead of us, so I bet you're tired. So we'll get you out of here.
No, absolutely, guys. If you guys want to stay engaged, kind of with what we're doing, like you guys said, you can visit our ignitemen.net, but also you can go to zachclinton.com to stay engaged with me. Just fill out a contact form. It'll send it directly to my email, and I will be glad to respond to anybody that may have any questions, want to stay connected or anything like that. But no, I think the pressing word that God has placed on my heart here recently, as I've just been studying through scripture on my own and just kind of diving into my own personal quiet time, has been that of faith. Just a lot here recently. And, as we were going through this last Christmas season, I was reading through the book of Luke, one chapter a day leading up to Christmas. And Luke chapter 1, right? One of my mentors that I go to in the faith, he mentioned it to me, and it was Luke 1, verse 45. And it was right after Mary, had gone and just been completely confronted by the angel that was going to preach into her, saying all these different things. Just about that she was about to birth the Son of God. And so she goes over to her cousin Elizabeth's house. And in that moment, Elizabeth is kind of sharing that verse of, oh my goodness, this baby has leaped within my womb because of the presence of your son, the Son of God. But then she mentions these words, and she said, blessed is she who has believed that he would fulfill his promises to her. And that to me is so powerful, because then I connect that right with Hebrews 11, which talks about the hall of faith. And it talks about what is faith, right, in general. And as it goes down towards the end of Hebrews 11, it talks about all of these amazing stories and all of these testimonies of faith from so many different individuals who have gone through the ringer in life, but have come out on top. But then it dives in even deeper at the end of Hebrews 11 to people in the faith that have actually been persecuted, that have been slain into two, that have been imprisoned, that have been thrown in the wilderness and in deserts of life and in the valleys, and they weren't able to fully see tangibly those promises come to fruition. But then it says the words that God actually has given them something greater, because without them, the full testimony wouldn't have come. And so my question that I've been asking myself, that I want to ask kind of all the listeners, is even when you can't see it tangibly, can you believe it faithfully, right? even when you don't see, you can still believe. That's kind of my pressing word right there.
In the
That's good.
there's a couple of verses in the Bible. I read a lot out of the King James, even though I carry an ESV. And there's a verse a couple of times. Paul says it to Timothy, and I forgot where else it is in the Bible, but it's unfeigned faith, pure faith, unfeigned. So without spot.
Without spot. Yeah.
That's hashtag goals, right? To have faith like that.
Yeah.
That's good. That's a great question, Zach. Thank you for asking that. That's good.
Absolutely.
I'll have to ponder that. That's pretty good. Yeah, because so many times you just want God to show you everything, and sometimes He's just saying, "You just got to trust me. You got to." This whole faith thing is a big deal. That's good.
Well,
that's really good.
I mean, it's interesting. That's how I found that God has grown my faith, is in the times where I'm not quite sure. I've always described it. I mean, it sounds like you're a wilderness hiker. You've ever been on a trail, you have markers. And when you actually go into the wilderness, the markers sometimes are really far apart. And it feels like the further you get into the wilderness, the further the markers are. And you don't know if you're on the trail, because a lot of it gets like conflated with the nature around you. And then, you'll see another marker and your faith grows in your ability to read a map, I guess it would be. But I feel like God works a lot like that when He's growing our faith, when we're young in the faith. And that's a solid question, and definitely worth some time thinking on and pursuing in your own walk. Love it.
That's good. Awesome. Well, Zach, congratulations on the marriage.
Thank you so much, Mr. Jody.
Praying on that for you, and I'll be praying for you on your doctorate. How much longer do you have on that?
So I just started.
Okay.
I'm just a couple weeks in, so I got 3.5 years.
Okay.
It don't count yet.
Yeah.
You've got a long way to go.
Yeah. Okay.
That's right.
You get halfway, you can start.
Yeah, there you go. Well, good luck on that. I'll be praying for that as well.
Thank you.
And we were actually talking to your Ben, my partner and I, a guy by the name of Tate Jordan, about possibly coming in for March, the conference. So we might see you.
That would be amazing.
We might see
that would be amazing, sir.
So
we will hook you up and treat you like gold. I promise you, my friend.
Okay, well we're gonna see what.
He's coming. Hey, he's coming now.
He's coming now.
See,
as long as I don't have green M&Ms.
At first, it seemed like a great idea he was thinking of, but if you're going to give him the VIP treatment, he's coming.
Planes booked.
Yeah, plane's booked. Get the credit card out. He's there.
That's awesome. These guys know me way too well, so I'm gonna have to get some new guys that don't know me anymore.
So you might just have to take all of us.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Zach, I'll tell you what, we've only done a few of these interviews, and everybody's been great. But I got to tell you, I came in here tonight. I knew of Ignite about your conference. I had seen it on Facebook. I had followed it some, and but I didn't know you from Adam, and I just want to personally tell you, I'm thoroughly impressed with the son that your dad's raising. With your outlook on Jesus and all that you're trying to do in these men's life, it's very promising to know that God's moving in and through people like you in this world. So God bless you, sir.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ben. Appreciate you so much.
Amen.
I love what you guys are doing. I'm so thankful for the opportunity. I love your guys' heart for Jesus and all the difference that you guys are doing by leading people to the foot of the cross. There's no greater feeling in the world than understanding that what we do is kingdom work. And even when it can get very, regurgitating at times, it's always worth it. It always is.
Amen. Well, brother, keep the faith and continue to do what you're doing. And I can't wait for the future to get to know you even better.
Looking forward to it, sir. Thank you so
brother.
much, Pastor Jody.
God bless you guys. Thank you.
Thanks.
God bless you as well.
Bye-bye. All right.
That was great, man.
That was good.
That was good.
Awesome, man.
Yeah, that was awesome. Impressive kid.
He was.
I call him a kid because I'm 50, but he's an impressive young man. I like what they're doing there. That was really good.
Right. What is going on here? Hold on. Got technical difficulties going on here. What happened?
We had sound coming through the TV or the Zoom. Is probably what's going on.
I turned the Zoom off.
Yeah, we're good.
There you go.
There we go.
Looks like we're clear.
That was crazy.
Little podcast. Let me ask you a question. Why do we have you two?
Yeah, exactly.
He had to fix that.
He has the remote over there by him.
You're asking some good questions, but we need you to fix this stuff, please.
Hey man, look! I mean, if you look, you can't see back here, but we have minimal material compared to Jody. Like, I just jumped to his screen, like he's got the soundboard.
I got everything right here. Like, yeah,
It's funny.
About time to get rid of all this crap.
It all shows to show you. Although he has loosened up the reins a lot, Jody's still got a lot of control.
I gotta have some control.
Yeah, he's
here.
got to have something.
I gotta have some.
I love it.
Well, that was a great interview. I like Zach was a great guest to have. What an amazing family that they have, and just the ministry, and really excited to, partner with them on down the line, and just to see what God is doing there. So, man, this week is already. It's just Monday. It feels like it's been 6 weeks. I have a massive headache today. I don't know why.
Yeah, I want to tell.
Face is about to explode off my.
I'd like to tell everybody that Jody has endured today, because when I walked in here tonight, I looked at him and I said to him, "Are you tired?" And Jody is infamous for getting migraines.
Yeah,
and you did real well, sir.
Yeah,
because I know at some point in the middle of the interview, I thought you were going to be like, "Guys, we just got to stop."
Glaze over. Yeah, I feel like if I could just take a needle and stick it like in between my eye and my sinuses, right there, just take it all out. But no,
Drain the pressure.
That was a good one. So. Next week, I'm really excited about next week. I have my wife on here, and she's nervous wreck. Oh, my goodness, she is a nervous wreck. And I told her, I said, I won't let you hang out there too bad, because we got 32 years of stuff to talk about. Like, we can talk all day long. So it'll be our Valentine's Day special, and so really excited about having here. Then we've got some amazing guests coming up, man. Our lineup is booking. We're booked through February and March now.
Beautiful.
And so we've got some great interviews coming up. We'll throw a list out there on Facebook coming in the next few days. So, but other than that, man, how are you doing on our Biggest Loser?
Yeah,
deal?
so
you're looking good, dude.
I'm down 2 pounds since last week. So
That's even after going to New Orleans.
Yeah,
after going to New
that was
Orleans.
pretty impressive.
So when I got back from New Orleans, I weighed a pound more, and I ate my weight in char-grilled oysters, but I wasn't eating a lot of carbs. Like, I didn't eat the bread that came with it and stuff like that. I'm down 2 pounds from last. So 2 weeks in a row, I was 227. New Orleans threw a little bit of a kink, but it really just, I wasn't what it's scientific term. I'm learning all this stuff. I wasn't in ketosis for a lot of the time I was in New Orleans. I'm down 2 pounds, so I'm at 225. So I'm down 36 total, 20 for the Biggest Loser.
That's
because I had
awesome.
started before we started the Biggest Loser.
So you're doing intermittent fasting?
I'm doing intermittent fasting. I'm fasting anywhere from 16 to 20 hours a day, depending on. I'm not starving myself. If I get hungry at the 16-hour mark, then I'll eat.
No, that's gonna be tough to beat, man. Intermittent fasting's no joke.
Yeah,
It works.
Yeah, I was doing that for a while, and then I started intermittent eating.
Well, Jody knows, because I've been telling him for 3 years. God is the Holy Spirit's actually been trying to get me
too.
to fast 3 days a week for about 3 years, and I start and I stop, and then I don't do it, and so this has been a way to start to get that spiritual routine back down,
right?
And it's getting easier by the day.
Do you think you don't do it because you don't love Jesus? Is that
Yeah. So
I don't do it because I must not love Jesus enough. Because I believe
I have
that
grace and gravy.
Yeah, I believe all of our struggles in the end come back to we don't love God as much as we love our struggle or ourselves,
exactly.
right? I think the answer to all of our issues is found in our love for God.
So I've been studying this area, so to speak, gluttony.
Yeah.
Like I've been, because it's one of those things that I haven't gotten a handle on and personally. So for me to preach it, it's going to be really hard. And so I've been learning, just trying to figure out what it is and what it isn't. And it's pretty spiritual. honestly, when you get down to the root of it. And if you could figure out, again, that love for God, like if you just understand, man, my love for God outweighs all the stuff that I'm doing in my life, including eating.
There's a
if I
reason.
could get there, gosh.
There's a reason why it's the first of the commandments in the New Testament. Love God with all your heart, all your mind, and all your soul. Whatever whatever the actual verse is, it's there. When we love God more than we love anybody else, I can tackle just about anything in my life.
Yeah, it's crazy. I don't understand why it's that. I came home today and, I'm trying to drink water all day and just, really cleanse myself and feel better about myself. And it was just like, as soon as I got home, it was almost like this switch in my head flipped off. I was like, oh, you're supposed to eat. Come on, let's eat. Yeah. Come on, let's eat. And it's like, I got to capture my thoughts and, make sure that I'm doing the right things. And
Matthew 22:37, Ben. That's what you're looking
at? No. No, I'm looking for, but that's a good one.
Yeah,
but
Matthew 22:37 is the one you just said.
There's a verse in 1 Peter, I believe it's 5. Here it is. 1 Peter 5, 9 and 10 and 11. Resist him, firm in your faith, knowing that the same kinds of suffering are being experienced by your body. And after you have suffered a little while, the God of all grace, who has called you to his eternal glory in Christ, with himself restore, confirm, strengthen, and establish you. That is planned suffering.
Yeah.
1 Peter what?
That's the only promise you have 5, as a Christian.
1 Peter 5, 9 to 11.
Yeah.
Before the foundations of the world, God planned for your life to have suffering before he restored, confirmed, strengthened, and established you. And the problem as Christians we have sometimes is we forget that. And when we get into suffering, we start asking, why is this happening to me? Why
me? Yeah, exactly.
Why is this happening for me, Lord?
Why
because
not?
Our perspective of suffering is the opposite of God's.
Right.
So God says suffering, trials, tribulations, all good. Hebrews 5:8, though he were a son, capital S, he learned obedience by that which he suffered.
Well, the issue for most Christians is not that they're suffering for Christ's sake.
Right.
They're suffering because they're stupid. Like, literally, they made the wrong mistake. They sinned. They spent too much money. They ate too much. They drove too fast. Like, their suffering is not because they are godly and they're sharing the gospel and they're making disciples and they have the enemy coming after them. It's just because we made dumb mistakes.
Well, and we're looking for the wrong answer to get us out of it.
Exactly.
We're looking to pull ourselves up by our own bootstraps.
Right.
I thought the Old Testament taught us that wasn't the way,
right?
Yeah. The way to get it done.
Right.
And we're sometimes we're just baffled that we're going through suffering at all. Yeah. So if we change our perspective and we start to see suffering coming, or we start to get it, and we start to say, oh, this is the goods. You remember in movies when I love when soldiers in battle say, he died well.
Yeah.
I want to suffer well.
Right.
Right? I want to suffer good.
Right.
Now, I'll probably regret that in 3 days. But it's a goal of mine for somebody to say, Ben suffers well. Right. He that endureth to the end shall be saved.
Yep.
Endure what? Suffering.
Yeah, exactly.
For
righteous sakes.
That's right.
I understand. That's the issue.
Not martyrdom.
Yeah, not martyrdom. But it's that issue that people think, oh, woe is me. Well, woe is me is usually your own problem. You messed up.
Yes.
More than the enemy coming after you. Does that make sense? Like, most of us aren't righteous enough and holy enough to where the enemy is coming after us and the world is coming after us. It's usually our own mistake. It's our sin. It's our problems, our issues, and then we call that suffering. Yeah. When we cause it ourselves.
Adam, I think Adam takes a bad rap sometimes. God's after they bit the apple and God comes down and talks to him, and he says to Adam, because you hearkened unto the voice of your wife. Now, that doesn't mean you don't listen to your wife, men. That's not what I mean. So let's just, and ladies, he had been given instruction by the Lord, and he listened to another voice.
Right.
Now, that sermon has been preached 100 times. Adam failed his wife. Adam wasn't the husband that he needed to be, and that is absolutely positively right. My perspective on the verses is a little different, though. He had just been given this wonderful helpmate, and she was beautiful, and he loved her, and he listened to her.
And she was naked.
And she was naked, and he listened to her
Right,
out of his
exactly.
love for
Yeah,
her.
I
When
know.
I first married Stacy, I can tell you that me and the Holy Spirit had a run-in because God said, you love her more than me. You are seeking her love more than you are seeking my love. You are seeking encouragement from her, and you are putting pressure on her to fill that void in your life, and you are not coming to me for
Right.
it. And I suffered for that.
Have
Yeah.
you ever heard
Right?
Have you ever heard the analogy that John Eldridge gives in the book Wild at Heart? He says that woman made a choice of knowledge. You know, she chose the apple, but for a split second there, Adam was still without sin.
Yes.
He made a completely different choice, and it's the choice you just described.
Yes.
He chose woman over God. So woman chose knowledge over God, but Adam didn't. He chose woman over God, and we've continually done the same thing. We've built up and made women our idols, just like you said. You know, when
Yes.
you first got married, your wife became, you know, the
Paul
idol.
warns of it when he says if you don't want to get married, or if you can keep from getting married, don't
don't
get
do
married,
it.
because
Yeah.
you're gonna start worrying more about her. She's gonna start worrying more about you, and all of a
You're going to
sudden,
do less for the kingdom.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah, you can do more for the kingdom as a single guy.
So basically, I'm the only one who's figured it out in this room.
yeah, exactly.
You're the only
got
one
it
that
all-
stayed single.
You guys got it all screwed up.
Uh-huh. They'd be wearing glasses. In a
yeah,
few
you'll be
weeks.
married inside 3 years. I hear it in your voice.
That's awesome. Awesome.
So where are you guys at now? So
As far as my weight
Yeah.
goes, oh my, I'm still at 221.
Okay.
I hadn't lost a pound.
well, at least you're holding steady.
Shoot, dude.
You know,
I'm telling you what.
when you were preaching Sunday, you said something like, "Oh, you were telling the story about how you went to QT,
yeah.
and got the hot dog." And I walked up behind Nan and I said, "Easiest money I ever
I know.
made." I literally stood up and went like this, like, "What are you doing, dude?"
Dude, I'm telling you, like it's not even a forethought for me. It's like I want to get healthy, and I don't know if I told this last week, but I was at my daughter's basketball game, and I was watching her play basketball, and I was, I did. I
you
told
did
this
tell the
last week. I
story.
already told
Yeah.
this last week.
love it,
Yeah.
yeah. Go ahead.
But I just had this, like, I want to be there when my older kids have grandkids
Yes.
and my younger kids are in high school. Like, and this conviction hit me, and since then. That was last Saturday. Since then, other than this past Saturday, I've been doing really good, focusing on what I'm eating, making sure I'm doing the right things. Went and joined a gym, like instant. As soon as that conviction hit me, went and joined a gym. And, man, I'm just not losing it. Like, there's something, 5-10 years ago, man, I could think about losing 10, 15 pounds and lose it. Now, 52, it doesn't come off as
Have you been to the gym?
fast as I want.
You said you
I
joined
have
the
been-
gym.
Yeah,
Okay.
I've been to the gym.
Just making sure.
I have, but today I packed 16-foot 2x10s all day long, and but it's just not falling
so
off like nothing.
I mean, my first goal is just to be less weight than you, to be able to come to this podcast one day and you're 221 and I'm 219.
Oh, I
It's
know.
going to be a big day.
Yeah, I know.
For me anyway,
Yeah.
personally.
Uh-huh.
And I want you to do well. I want you to get healthy. I want you to do well. I just want you to gain or lose by 1%.
I went to
That's
the
it.
doctor this morning, and my blood pressure was 130/80, so that's good.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm healthy, other than just fat.
I
man,
said
shape.
I've stayed at 207, so I lost about 5 pounds there to start, and then it's just kind of plateaued there. So, but
I feel like you would still feel like if you won. I mean, if you didn't lose weight, but you just got jacked.
Mm-hmm.
Like you would lose technically. It'd be a loss. It'd be an L for sure. But you would
If I could just,
feel
yeah, exactly.
just shredded. Yeah, there
Get
you
that,
go.
get that back up here. Yeah.
Because that's not gonna, that's gonna be easier to do to build some muscle.
Yeah.
Your weight's not gonna change, But
I just gotta get rid of the gut.
So I haven't even started. I'm getting ready to start exercising once it's warm enough in the morning. I want to start walking 4 miles, or actually no, 2 miles before work, and then 2 miles with Stacy after work, because Stacy she can't get up at 4 in the morning and walk. She's got the grandkids. She's got too much going on. So we want to walk together. So she normally does about 2 miles comfortably. So I want to do 2 miles in the morning and then walk after maybe dinner or right before dinner or whatever, 2 miles with her at night and incorporate. And then hopefully that's going to speed things up some. But what I'm doing is I'm just slow and steady now. I've incorporated some potatoes back into my diet. I went extreme at first, right? So less than probably 20 grams of carbs. So I read something that says potatoes, that the vitamins and minerals in a potato is much better for you than worrying about the starch or the carbs in them, as long as you don't overdo it. So I'm incorporating the stuff. So my weight loss will slow down some, you know, but 180 is the goal by July 3rd when the competition's over. So that's the goal.
It's a
win,
long
lose, or
race.
draw. Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be worth it though. I'm gonna get there.
I know you will.
I gotta get there. I just gotta get my eating back in right.
You can ask your sister, Stacy. I said before I went to New Orleans is exactly what I said to her. I said, listen, he's going to start losing weight. And right now I'm trying to widen the gap.
Yeah.
So there's a strategy. I know at some point you're going to turn your mind on and do it. And so I'm trying to stretch the gap out to where you can't catch me.
Yeah.
Right.
You're killing it though, dude. 36 pounds. You're killing it. That's awesome. Dude.
And I
you can
appreciate,
tell.
there's been a lot of people in my life, especially this
tell.
Sunday. A lot of people just walked up and said something, and I'm trying to be, other than the competition, I'm trying to be humble about it. But it was very encouraging that people are noticing and seeing that I'm trying to change some things in my life. And my wife sent me a nice text today. I said to her, I was telling her about why bone broth is better than regular broth. And I said, because it's got vitamins and minerals and protein and collagen in it, which is good for your skin. And she said, she texted me back, I'm at work. She said, who are you? She said, you sound like a woman. And I said, well, I'm trying to make some changes in my life, babe. And her text back to me was, I see you are.
That's awesome.
It was her letting, at first I didn't catch it.
Right.
But then I realized she was being intentional about saying, I see what you're trying to do. I see you. Right. And it made me feel really good. So
That's
I appreciate
awesome.
all
Yeah,
those
you're
nice
looking
words.
good, dude.
Yeah, I
You're
was gonna
killing
say there's a comment that says this podcast is narrating my life right now. He's trying to he's eating a bowl of ice cream. He's trying to convince himself to get healthy.
it. Yeah,
That's the problem.
Don't tell him
peop-
we see him, bro.
yeah,
we see you.
Yeah,
People
we
who
see.
know me know that on the Sunday night I have my last meal. Like my family's like, it's the last meal. I'm starting Monday. You know, like and it's usually a Chinese meal with dessert and everything else. So, but
The intermittent fasting works for me.
Yeah.
It
did for me too.
It did
Yeah.
in 2013 before I knew it was called intermittent fasting.
Right.
I did the HCG diet back then, which wasn't really good for you, and you can see that it didn't do well for me. But now I've got a lot more education in it. I know I need to eat some carbs. I know I need to have a fairly normal diet to make a lifestyle change.
Yeah, it has to be a lifestyle
right.
change. It
So-
can't just be a diet. That's where I've got to figure out what my lifestyle, is.
Well, you can do intermittent fasting as a long term.
Right.
Like I've practiced it for a while.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, but my problem is, so I'll intermittent fast and then I'll eat 2 large pizzas.
that's fun.
That evening.
So,
So
Jody,
that's my problem.
I'm gonna give a plug to somebody because I want you to look him up. Look up a Dr. Berg, Berg, on YouTube. Joe Rogan's had him on, I believe, multiple times. He does 5 to 15-minute videos on different of
that's
exactly what intermittent fasting is, what you should be eating, what supplements you should be taking, this, that, and the other. And that's all this stuff that I'm talking about. I've really learned from him and others that I've done, and I just wasn't doing it. But something changed in November, bro. You know.
Yeah, I know.
Something changed. I've knocked like 16 things out of my life. I quit cigars. I was a cigar. So I don't have issues with anybody smoking cigars. My dad died of emphysema, COPD. God's always put an impression that it's about my health.
Right.
I'm not a sinner. I'm not going to hell because I smoke cigars. I enjoyed it.
Smell like you've been there.
I've quit that. I've quit that. And some other
That's a tough
things.
one
Good.
to quit.
Yeah,
Man.
it is.
It is.
I used to smoke Churchills. It's like a turd,
Okay,
you know,
yeah.
like about this long, about that big around.
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
My problem
You know-
is I like to spend $5 to $15 on each one.
Yeah, I
so
did too.
I can't do that.
Back in the day, I used
Yeah.
to do that quite often too.
And
so.
Stacy didn't like it, and she put up with it like a trooper for about 5 years. And it's time for me. It was time for me to get away from it for my marriage too. She can't stand it. She's got some childhood memories of smoking and this, that, and the other, and it was affecting our intimacy and being able to kiss my wife at night if I hadn't cleaned up and brushed my teeth, and it's not worth it.
Yeah.
Now
Right.
you know the
It's
real
not worth
reason
it.
I'm single, brother.
No, I get it. I get it.
Cigars.
I did it for 22 years.
Awesome.
You know, but
Awesome. Well, guys, I'm ready to go.
yeah.
About time for me to hit the bed. My head is about to pop off my shoulders. Appreciate you guys. It's been awesome. And for those who are watching, make sure you check us out on Spotify, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Amazon, Podomatic. You find your whatever platform you have as far as podcast goes. You can find Man Up God's Way, Man Up Monday podcast on there. And we'll be back next week with my wife for Valentine's Day special, and really excited about that. And so,
Yeah, you guys won't want to miss that. If you want to see the backbone of Jody, it's definitely his wife, Nan.
Yeah,
So
you'll see
It'll be a
what-
good one.
What makes me a better man?
That's right.
Exactly, for sure. So, we'll until then, we'll see you next Monday, 8:00 Central Standard Time. And thank you guys again for being here. God bless,
fellas.
You've been listening to the Man Up God's Way podcast. Visit us on Facebook, Spotify, Apple, iTunes, and our website at manupgodsway.org.